Hello and welcome to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. It's that time of month again where I do the colour analysis readings for every birthday month of the year, and this time we'll be looking at what will happen in the month of May 2025. I've been asked why I don't do zodiac signs for these readings, and there's a very specific reason for that. The month of our birth is the one that occurs on all official documents about our lives, and as such, it has a subliminal effect upon us. So the birth month is actually more important on a subliminal level than our zodiac signs. We all have birth months. We don't necessarily follow zodiacs. Similarly, colour is also something that works on a subliminal level. We all can see colours, we can all recognise them, and as such, they have an effect upon our lives that works at an unconscious level. So by pairing the subliminal text of our birth month with the unconscious language of colour, I hope to bring something a little different to you in terms of a colour reading that analyses what could be and what might be. This is a general reading, of course, and if it doesn't resonate with you immediately, maybe you'd like to come back to it later. But for now, just settle back and enjoy. This is a colour reading for people born in the month of October for what will happen in May 2025. The cards have been pre-shuffled, so let's get on with it. The energy that you bring into May is white on cyan. The energy that proceeds throughout the month of May is cyan on blue, and the energy with which you leave May is yellow on green. And the underlying energy for the entire month is yellow on black. So what do we have here? Well, there are two colours that appear twice. The first of these is cyan, which appears as the need or drive or motivation in the incoming energy. It also appears as the action throughout the month. And then we have yellow, which appears as the action at the energy that leaves May, but also as the action in the underlying energy. So what does all of that mean? If we examine this incoming energy, we can see that cyan is the colour that begins the month. And cyan is all about contentment. It's all about ultimate stability. It's about all of those things that leave you calm and relaxed and in a state of bliss. But because it is a need, a drive, a motivation, those things are missing. So they're the things that you are looking for. You want things to be calm and comfortable and able to be enjoyed without any sort of stress. How do we do that, though? In the real world, you have white. White is scattered energy when it's in activity. So what you are doing in order to achieve all of this calm and bliss and contentment that you're looking for is sending energy in all sorts of directions. And that energy means that you're trying in all sorts of different ways to establish that peaceful calm you're looking for. Is it possible to do so? Well, that depends on which direction you are sending your energy. Clarity, or white, is all about curiosity. It's about discovery. It's about dealing with facts, with the things that arise around you, experiences. And these are ultimate experiences. These are experiences that deal with the unknown. So in order to obtain the peace that you're looking for, you're actually experimenting with things that you've never done before to try and establish what works for you. As we move further into the month, that cyan now moves up into the real world. It moves up into the action that you're taking. So in effect, you find yourself doing things to try and stabilize your life. But what's underneath and driving that is blue. Blue is the ultimate in the status quo, but it's also about understanding. It's about silence. It's about doing your duty. And all of those things are needs. In order to be able to create the peace and quiet and bliss that you're looking for, you need to get to and determine what it is that you need to do in order to achieve that. It's duty, it's responsibility, it's understanding where you're coming from in order to get to where you want to go. And cyan and blue together are looking for peace and quiet, but ultimate peace and quiet. And in that respect, it often means that the quiet that you're looking for becomes stagnation, boredom, the inability to feel as though you are in a state of bliss because you have this underlying dissatisfaction with the status quo. That leads us to an entirely different view towards the end of the month. You've added some yellow to the blue drive and turned it into green. So now, instead of simply trying to maintain the status quo, you've moved into a situation where now you're looking for opportunities to escape it. You want to try something new. You need to change your values, your opinions, your way of looking at things in order to be able to establish what it is that you were looking for back here. But when you do that, when you look for those new experiences in the real world, instead of finding peace and quiet and harmony, you instead find there are so many things that you have yet to learn, things that you don't understand, things that you need to find out about. So there's a lot of education taking place here. Now, in terms of the tarot, yellow on green is the card known as the Chariot. So it's a very fast-moving energy. And you can see, in fact, that striving for a new direction, striving for new places to go in the real world puts you in a situation where you're actually seeing different places. You're seeing changes in the environment. You're seeing changes in yourself as well. And between them, the yellow and green actually becomes a very pale greenish yellowy color that causes people to often gamble with whatever it is that they are looking for. So your resources are now at risk. Are you traveling too fast in any one direction when you could perhaps be taking a little more sedate route in a different direction? Are you not traveling fast enough? Are you not learning what you need to know in order to know which direction to take? All of these are inherent within this idea of the Chariot. The Chariot is moving. It's moving forward, not backwards. But at the same time, there is no clear direction that you're taking, because if you look at the card of the Chariot, you often see that the horses or whoever is pulling the cart is heading in a different direction. So there are choices to be made here, choices based on your values and also on your experience. How does the underlying energy then come into this? Well, when we have black in the interior, black as the driving force, it means that you actually don't want to be involved in things in the real world. Black internally is a search for some sort of spiritual connection, some sort of inner truth that may be revealed as a result of what it is you are doing back here. And in your journey through the month, wanting to withdraw as the underlying energy means that you are often missing the sorts of connections that are necessary either for creating bliss or understanding or new directions. In the real world, the underlying energy offers you the opportunity to learn. And in fact, that's exactly how you end up at the end of the month, with those same energies of needing new information, receiving new information, having to process it, digesting novel circumstances. But there's a danger here. yellow and black, is nature's warning sign about things that are venomous. Plants and animals that have yellow and black are often quite toxic to humans and to other creatures. And so nature is saying here, beware, be careful. Don't do anything foolish. Don't approach without first knowing what the hidden information, what the hidden opportunities, what the hidden attributes of a particular situation are. This combination, as a warning, a danger signal, leads through every aspect of what you will be dealing with in May. So let's have a look at how it impinges on each section. When we have cyan and black mixed together, we end up with a form of blue. Black darkens cyan. And so instead of a search for bliss and peace and harmony and just simply being able to relax and enjoy life, we now have the need to get on with the job, to do as you're told, to do your duty, take on those responsibilities, and in fact learn to understand that what you want back here is not necessarily what you're going to get. On the other hand, yellow and white are both colors of experience and adventure, of getting out there and discovering stuff in the real world, and also learning about new data that is incoming. With white, that data is scattered from all directions. With yellow, it's a having to take it in and digest it mentally. But when we have those two together, when we have the yellow impinging upon the white, it actually makes it harder for you to remember the things that you need to remember. White is curiosity, yellow has to do with memory. A whitened and enlightened memory often means that you're so full of new information that it's hard to sort it out, much less to be able to understand and remember it for any length of time. In the middle of the month, we have black and blue combining with one another. Now, black and blue is, as the idiom suggests, a potential for damage, for having survived damage, because otherwise you wouldn't go black or blue. But certainly there's been a fair amount of damage taken place. And as it takes place, you find yourself having to retreat, which is what the black's all about, and recover by keeping quiet, by maintaining that stability in your life that is necessary for you and your body to overcome whatever the issue is. Now, that black and blue may be a physical thing. It may also be an emotional thing. But either way, you're feeling battered and bruised. As well as that, we have yellow and cyan. Yellow and cyan form a type of green that is very similar to this pale green that you've got here, the yellowy green. Yellow and cyan together cause a problem insofar as the battered and bruised nature of things that you are trying to recover from have been caused because you have done something in which you tried very hard to maintain the peace, but were hit with a reality check that didn't exactly help you along. You found yourself taking a chance, gambling. And that gamble was about your own safety. There is nothing here that says that blood was spilt, but there's nothing here that says that you really are doing well either. It's not a comfortable position to be in, to have to retreat because of that battered and bruised feeling, and at the same time taking unnecessary risks to try and overcome that battering. When we get into the future, we have green and black as the underlying drives. Now, when we darken green, we restrict the opportunities that are available to us. So putting those two together means that even though you're looking for opportunities, even though you're looking for new directions in which to go, They are very much restricted to what is immediately available, and your choices, therefore, are also restricted. Black on green also impinges upon your values. There is a restriction in the things that you guarantee yourself to be good for you, but also a restriction in the way in which you think about issues in your life and how they will impinge upon how you carry out your everyday existence. Yellow and yellow together, on the other hand, is an overdose of reality. There is so much information, so many things to learn, so many things to discover in order to be able to feel cheerful and joyful, which is what yellow in the real world often creates. You're actually overdosing on that. You are, in a way, like here, pretending to be happy, or here, attempting to get away from the things that are stressing you. And in fact, when we have too much information, we get mental indigestion. And that's really what this tends to suggest. That mental indigestion means that you can't take in any more information, no matter how hard you try, which is why there is this sense of wanting to get away from it and to retreat. Whereas here, the opportunity to get away from it is already restricted because of the influence of the black on green. So how do we overcome this story and head ourselves somewhere where the chariot is driving us towards a good outcome? Well, let's examine the colours that are missing. You have black, you have white. There is no red, but you do have yellow and green and blue. There is no cyan. There is no orange or grey or purple or pink, but you do have cyan. So let's have a look at these. These colours here represent the skills that you are currently using within the month of May. And because you're using these are the things that are guiding you through the various different aspects of what you have to deal with. If we look at them, we can see that they're primarily cool colours, yellow being a bit of an exception, but even here, in amongst these colours, it also looks a little bit cool. On the other hand, here, the red, grey, purple, brown, orange, and pink are the warm end of the spectrum. This is the stuff that allows you to feel alive. This keeps you under control. This allows you to move forward. So in order to achieve what you're setting out to achieve here, in order to get to the goals that you are looking for and do so in a way where both sets of animals pulling the chariot along are heading in the same direction, you really need to start looking at what is available among these skills here. So take from these the one colour that is most appealing and then the one colour that is least appealing and apply them to your life. When you do so, you'll find that there are subtle changes, maybe not so much down here because this seems to be a fairly untroubled existence, but by the time you get to the middle of the month, you're starting to get the effects of both the negativity that is inherent in black internally, but also the false positivity that is inherent in pretending to be cheerful when in fact you're not feeling that way at all. And by the time you get to the future, you might just find yourself heading in a direction that is far more compatible with what you originally set out to do than where you would go without the addition of these particular skills. This is a colour reading for people born in the month of November to examine what will happen for them in May. The cards have been pre-shuffled, so let's get into it. The energy you bring into the month of May with you is orange on orange. The energy in the middle of the month is green on purple, and the energy with which you leave the month is red on grey. And the underlying energy for the month is pink on grey. Now, looking at this reading, there are two things that stand out. Firstly, we have the repetition of the colour grey, which appears both in the future and also in the underlying energy as a need, a drive, a motivation. That means it's an important one. But even more important than this is the colour in which we achieve the entry into the month of May, and this is orange on orange. Now, when the same colour appears in both the top and the bottom, as in the action as well as the motivation, the driving force, then we have an issue that arises. The problem is that there are very few cards within the pack of 84 cards that enables one colour to be there in both top and bottom. There are only 12 of those cards there. And when they do appear, there is a restriction in what you can actually do in response to the need or drive, because the need and drive and the action are the same thing. So this person who creates the same colour top and bottom has to deal with an inability to change from a drive, as we have here, to an action that may or may not accompany it well, but nevertheless gives you options. This gives very little in the way of options. So let's have a look at this in more detail. Orange on orange is, as far as the tarot is concerned, the Page of Wands. The Page of Wands is a volatile, immature character who is able to throw lots of different ideas around, to do lots of exciting things, to take risks, take chances, to survive all sorts of calamities, but at the same time, they're not actually getting very far. When you enter the month of May, you're feeling very confident. You're feeling courageous. You're feeling you can survive any issue that may be facing you. At the same time, there is this need to constantly throw yourself into a situation where you have to prove that you are confident and courageous and able to survive. So by having that need to prove those attributes, you then go about finding opportunities to prove them, and that in turn leads back into needing to prove yourself again, which leads you back into doing those things. So there is a continuous cycle of, am I really good enough? Look, I'll prove I can be. Maybe I'm not. That may not be enough for me to do, so let's do something else. That was an insufficient result. Let's try it again. And so you go round and round and round, constantly trying to prove that you are capable of all sorts of survival characteristics. Orange on orange, or the Page of Wands, is immature in that respect. They're not able to deal with changes very easily. They react, and it is a very reactive energy. They react to what happens, but they react in the same way every time. They make a drama out of everything. It's always a big crisis that has to be faced and dealt with. As you move further into the month, that disappears altogether. In fact, we go right away from that end of the spectrum and end up with green on purple. Purple, like orange, is also a drama. It's a characteristic of making changes and fairly dramatic changes. Purple, however, is both a healer as well as a destroyer. In order to make a wound improve, you often have to rip off the scab, and that's the sort of energy that is driving this green on purple. There is a need for things to get better. You need to heal. There is a need to get in touch with that part of yourself that enables you to feel as though you can do something to make yourself feel better, put yourself in a better situation, recreate something that has gone astray. But in order to make those changes, you often have to have a fairly catastrophic destruction before you can begin to create. And when you have that feeling, what you're actually doing in the real world is looking for opportunities. I can do this, I can do that. There's another opportunity, and so forth. And so you find that every time you have this feeling of needing to change something quite dramatically, you jump off in a different direction in order to try and grow something new. Now, green and purple together for the tarot readers is the card known as the Star. It is hope. And there's a lot of hope inherent in this. I need things to improve, to get better. And here are the opportunities that I can take, the alternatives that I can envisage or can explore in order to make those things better. There is a great deal of hopefulness that occurs in the middle of the month that overcomes this crisis, that energy with which you are entering the month. Here, you're simply flying off in all directions like a fire that heads off without necessarily having an end goal in sight. Now there is hope for the future. And what is that future? Here we have red on grey. The grey internally, grey always denotes confusion, an inability to understand things that are hidden, but not completely hidden. They're a bit cloudy and hazy. So the need here is for overcoming those sort of uncertainties. And as you try and overcome them, in the real world, you are asserting yourself, but not in the same way as you would assert yourself here in terms of I can survive, I have confidence and so forth. This is straight out autocracy. I am going to demand, I am going to insist, I am going to be in charge of all of the things that I require that will help me to overcome that confusion that I feel inside about the fact that I'm not able to achieve the things that I'm hoping for back here very easily. Red in the real world, red as an activity, always comes with a warning. Red says stop, reconsider, be careful. But when you are confused internally, when you're not really sure what it is that you should be doing, then the red in the real world is often a reactive activity rather than one that is constrained by an ability to think and consider in advance. You're looking for a way out of these sorts of dramas, but you don't understand the consequences. Grey in the interior, those confusions are about not understanding where you have got to go, or if you don't look at those things carefully, where you're likely to end up. So consequences are something that is necessary, but in the real world, there is not a great deal of heedance given to creating ideas and activities that will allow you to have the sort of consequences that are positive rather than destructive. So the underlying energy here has a very similar sort of story. We still have that grey uncertainty, that need to find out about the consequences of the things that you do. But instead of red, which is the demanding that I will do whatever I want to do, we have pink. Pink is a degraded or denatured form of red. There isn't much energy left in this. The pink actually gives an impression of babyhood, of inadequacy, of needing to be assisted. It is a very seductive colour, but it's also a colour of somebody who is asking for help and actually ready to receive it. The big issue with pink in the real world is the inability to say no. You cannot choose which of the consequences or which of the actions are going to be done by people who are there to assist you. You can't say no. And when you can't say no, the consequences of what happens to you is very much outside of your control. So let's now have a look at how this pink and grey impinges upon your story as you head through the month of May. When we add grey to orange, we actually darken it somewhat. So instead of a need, a drive, a motivation to discover how you can survive a particular crisis or how you can simply demonstrate your courage and your competence, we now find that that is restricted somewhat. When the grey is added, we are reducing your ability to obtain the sorts of responses that you want as a result of the inner drive towards being responsible. In the real world, the pink and orange together give you the sort of inability to act effectively. Yes, you can prove that you are courageous. Yes, you can prove that you can survive whatever is thrown at you. But the pink influence tends to suggest that those survival skills are in fact watered down, they're diluted, and what you are surviving is not something that you have chosen to survive. It is things that have been thrown at you, or you have been thrown into those circumstances, and there is no real way for you to escape. You are forced into a situation of having to survive, even though you did not choose to go in that direction to start off with. Pink, remember, can't say no. So what happens in the middle of the month? The grey added to purple again darkens it. And here we have a greater likelihood of destructive forces rather than creative ones. You still have the need to heal things, to make things better. But when grey, uncertainty and confusion is added to that, you don't even know what it is that you need to heal from. You don't know what it is that you want to make better. And because that confusion overpowers the feeling of, I can make things better if I only knew what it is that I want to do, then you'll find yourself not able to make correct choices when it gets to the opportunities that come towards you. We also have pink impinging upon the green here. Pink says, I can't say no. Green says, here's what is being offered to you. Pink and green, like green and red, are opposites on the colour wheel because red and pink are so closely aligned. When we have green opportunities available, when we have green new growths, new directions, new ways of thinking and feeling and valuing your life's choices, here we have an absence of active choice making. You end up with a lot of movement in all sorts of directions other than the ones that you would probably have chosen way back here because you don't know how to limit those choices. Things are thrown at you and you simply have to deal with them. If you can make them better, all good, but chances are that they will simply destroy what you already have, and now you have to pick up the pieces. How do you do that? Well, we get back here to grey on grey and grey being the internal drives. When you have a double dose of internal drives, it increases whatever it is that you need to accomplish. So overcoming that uncertainty, overcoming the confusion, being able to visualize and understand what consequences there are for your activities, your ideas, your feelings, those greys are now intensified. And the action that occurs as a result of the intensification of the grey is red and pink. Now that's an interesting combination because both of those have to do with fertility. Are you going to fall pregnant? Are you going to fall in love? Are you going to fall in lust? Whatever it is, the amount of red and pink together have to do with love and passion. Is what is going to happen to you something that you're going to enjoy? Or is it going to be something that you are going to have to fight against? Are you going to be able to accept without having to regret that acceptance? Are you going to be able to enforce what you specifically want out of a given situation? Red and pink make for a very uncomfortable bedfellows when they are at odds with one another. When they go together, love and passion can be wonderful, but it doesn't last, as doesn't very much within our lives. We always need to move forward. So how do we overcome these issues and bring about the best future that is possible for us? Well, let's have a look at the colours that are missing. There is no black. There's no white. You do have red. There's no yellow, but you do have green. There's no blue or brown, but you do have orange, and you have grey, and you have purple, and you have pink, but you have no cyan. So let's have a look at these. Red, green, grey, pink, purple, and orange are the colours of the skills that you will use and use quite effectively throughout the month, because ultimately you will survive it. Red and orange together, actually in the same reading, always talk about survival from calamity. Now, they're quite an interesting group of colours. They range from the warm to the cool, and they allow you to have quite a wide variety of different ways of approaching your life. But they are insufficient for you to overcome the issues that are presented with all of this uncertainty and confusion of the grey. So let's have a look at what is missing. We have black, white, yellow, cyan, brown, and blue. They're not very edifying in terms of colour. Again, we have some warm and we have a lot of cool colours. In order to overcome the problems of this love and passion, the can't say no and the I demand, I'd ask you to choose from among these six the one colour that is most appealing and then the one colour that is least appealing. And when you do so, add those two colours into your repertoire on a daily basis. You can also find yourself understanding what your place is in the scheme of the issues that you will be facing in the month of May. It's entirely up to you. This is a colour reading for people born in December to follow them through the month of May 2025. Let's see what it brings for you. The underlying energy that you bring with you into the month of May is white on black. The energy at the middle of the month is green on orange, and you leave the month with pink on cyan. And the underlying energy is black on black. Looking at this, there's one thing that stands out quite obviously. You have black occurring 3 times within the same reading. Black here as the need, the drive, the motivation, the thing that you desire, occurs both in the incoming energy but also in the underlying energy. And in the real world, in the action taken, we also have black as part of the underlying energy. When we have the same colour in the top and the bottom of a particular combination, there is always a caveat that needs to be made. There are only 12 of these cards in the pack of 84, so it's unusual to get one. But when you do, it does tend to suggest that there is a restriction, a limitation on what you can do with that particular combination. The drive internally, that is characterized by the colour in the bottom, develops into an action in the real world, that is the colour in the top, that cannot differentiate between the drive and the activity. They are the same thing. There is a very limited choice. And as an underlying energy, this is particularly pertinent because it moves throughout the entire month. You don't get rid of it very easily. So let's have a look at the whole reading. You come into the month with a feeling of pretty much doom and gloom. You need to have time out. Black is about getting in touch with your inner self, It's about your spiritual abilities. It's about your psychic skills. But it's also a color of depression. So you have hung back. You've tried to keep away from anything that has disturbed you because you're looking for answers from inside yourself. But how does that work for you? In the real world, you have white. You have a scattering of all sorts of information. It's coming in, it's going out. There is data, there is truth, there are falsities. You cannot differentiate between all of the information that is available out there and that is impinging upon yourself. So the more information, the more you have a need to retreat. The more you retreat, the more information is thrown in your direction. And you've got to the stage at the beginning of the month where everything is seen literally in terms of black and white, truth and untruth. You've had to choose. You've had to take sides. That's not a comfortable position to be in because you have partial information. Internally, you know when things are right for you. Externally, you query everything that comes towards you. Have you made the correct decisions? Have you made the correct assumptions? Do you know what you're actually thinking, talking, and doing? The black and white of it tends to suggest that this is a dichotomy with which you are struggling throughout the beginning of the month. As we move further into the month, we have green on orange. Green on orange in terms of the tarot is the Five of Wands. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to maintain the status quo, but also to overcome challenges. Orange in the internal world is all about a desire for proving that you are capable of surviving, that you have the courage, that you have the confidence, that you are able to achieve those goals that you set out to achieve. How you do this, however, in the real world is by grasping at opportunities. And in fact, opportunities are coming at you, and they're coming at you from different directions. So there is no actual certainty about which opportunities are going to be beneficial and which ones are not. So as the Five of Wands is a struggle, this is a struggle inside yourself as well as a struggle externally. The external struggle is with the things that you have to choose, the opportunities that you accept and the opportunities that you reject, whereas the internal struggle is all about, am I going to be strong enough? Am I going to be courageous enough? Will I survive whatever choices I make in the real world? And once again, there is no actual guarantee. The Five of Wands is a card of difficulty, and so too is this combination of green and orange. As we move towards the end of the month, we have pink on cyan. Now, cyan internally is a craving for harmony. It's a craving for ultimate in peace and satisfaction, bliss. I need things to settle down. I just want to be left alone and I want to be comfortable. But it's also a color that suggests that these things are not available for you right now. So you are looking for the perfect amount of nurturing, whether it be self-nurture or nurture from others, in order to obtain that wonderful feeling of harmony and comfort that you are craving. In the real world, however, how you go about this is simply accepting whatever is offered to you. Pink and green are virtual opposites on the color wheel. The actual opposite of green, of course, is red, but pink is very closely aligned to this. So here we have a situation in which opportunities are there, but you are not capable of discerning which ones are useful and which ones are not, which ones are harmful and which ones are beneficial. You can't say no. Pink in the real world is acceptance of anything because you are vulnerable. You allow yourself to be led, you allow yourself to be fed, you allow yourself to be given whatever somebody else thinks you need in order to satisfy you. This, in fact, is the contented baby. That's where you are headed. You want things easy, And as long as you are prepared to let other people simply take charge of your life and give you what they think you need, then hopefully you will remain happy. The contented baby is, once it's well fed. That's part of what the cyan is about. But if that baby is not satisfied, if it is not comfortable, if it is not in a state of feeling good about itself, then what does a baby do in the real world? It cries. It can't help itself. It can't do anything about the discomfort, but it can make a lot of noise. And that's part of what this is about. By the end of the month, you will either be the contented baby or the dissatisfied one. So how does this underlying energy impinge upon all of this? Well, for a start, the craving for being left alone, for isolating yourself, for being able to retreat into your own inner world and spend time inside yourself, self-dialogue, searching for psychic meanings within yourself, looking for spiritual truths. That search in the real world has left you isolated, creates that isolation. You don't want to be involved with people, so you have locked yourself away. That's the underlying energy for the entire month. And because of that, it actually looks to other people as though you are in a state of depression. It's not necessarily the sort of depression that needs to be medicated, but if you are self-medicating, this is the reason why. The need to get away from interaction with others, with your environment, then becomes an actual physical isolation that is self-imposed. How does that affect the rest of the journey through May? If we look at the need, the drive, wanting to get away, both in the beginning of the month and also as your underlying energy, means that this is an overwhelming urge. I don't know what's happened to you at this stage, but you desperately need time out. And that's what you are craving and going for. But in the real world, whereas opportunities and information and data is heading at you, there is a lack of discernibility between truth and fiction. When we add this black activity from your underlying energy to the white, we end up with grey. Grey is uncertainty, it's confusion. So going from a situation where you are pretty sure you know the difference between right and wrong, black and white, good and bad, now we get into a situation where in fact you are far more likely to be feeling and acting in a way that is confusing, not only yourself, but also others around you. And because of that black and white interaction, your need, your drive to get away from things and to isolate yourself becomes even stronger. By the middle of the month, that black energy now begins to work on this opportunity and the courage to continue the fight. So the Five of Wands now becomes darkened. Black on orange starts to become fairly close to brown. So here we have a desire for practical skills, whereas before it was just simply a struggle to maintain whatever it is that you are looking for. Now it becomes a need to develop the sorts of skills and the sorts of goals that will get you to where you want to go. Black and green, on the other hand, when green is darkened down, it restricts your opportunities. So while we are busy creating goals as a result of the black and orange, we're also finding that the more goals we put out there, the fewer opportunities there are for us to actually achieve them. So the struggle becomes harder, it becomes more difficult. By the end of the month, though, things have started to lighten up for you again. And when we add black to cyan, we come close to blue. So instead of simply a craving for the ultimate in comfort, we're now quite prepared to accept the status quo. Things will be stable. They will be able to settle down, but only because of this need for isolation has now worked its way to influence the opportunities that you would otherwise have had when you are allowing others to take control of your needs. You now are able to find peace and comfort, perhaps not bliss and harmony, but peace and comfort as a result of darkening down your desires, dampening them down so that you're not quite as anxious as you would have been if these were left unchecked. On the other hand, black added to pink brings us back into the realm of red. And so here we have you starting to be a little more assertive, a little more aggressive, a little more verbal and vocal and active. You're starting to take control of your life. This is no longer then, with this combination, this is no longer the contented baby, this is now the active toddler. You've learned to accept the fact that sometimes you too can say no. Pink doesn't allow you to say no, red most certainly does. So how do we manage to achieve the goals of this contented baby without necessarily having to spill blood in order to obtain what we want? Because that's what red and blue offer us. Well, let's look at the colors that are missing. You have black, you have white. Oops. There's no red or yellow, but you do have green. There is no blue as such, or brown, but you do have orange. There's no grey as such. You don't have purple, but you do have pink, and you do have cyan. So what we have here, I'll just scrunch these up a little bit so you can see them easily. There we go. What we have here are the colours that represent the skills that you are using throughout the month of May. The dominant one, of course, is black, and that is retreat. Be careful with that one. When you retreat too far, sometimes it takes an awful lot of effort to come back up to doing the things that you otherwise would enjoy doing. Because once you're in a state of deep depression or deep solitude, deep meditation even, coming back up again has to take a lot of effort. Nevertheless, these skills are extremely useful. They allow you to take time out, to get involved in everything, to grab opportunities, to be courageous, to allow people to help you with problems, and also to give you the opportunity to be at peace, ultimately. These colours here, on the other hand, represent the skills that you're not currently using because you're busy with these. Nevertheless, the red, yellow, blue, purple, grey, and brown are all colours that represent skills that will help you along the way. So what you are invited to do here is to choose from among those 6 colours, the one that is most appealing and then the one that is least appealing, and to include those in this repertoire. Do something with those colours so that they are visible to you every single day throughout the month of May. And when you incorporate those two, you are also incorporating a little bit of everything that is missing out and making yourself a self-rounded, a completely well-rounded person that will end up being able to take that comfort and that love that you have for everything and anything, that ability to be a charming and wonderful person, and fly with it into June with a great deal of joy. And there we have it. Another set of readings that will follow you and your birth month through the month of May. I certainly hope that you found something in these readings that is of benefit to you, and perhaps it might make you think a little bit more deeply as to how we can tell things about our futures without necessarily being aware of what the specifics are in each case. Certainly, for the rest of May, I hope that you have a wonderful time, that the colours in your life bring you many blessings. Until next time, bye.